Hi everyone! There were some questions about the homework, the review, question number 19 in particular. So I thought I would show you a little activity on Desmos so that we have some understanding. Okay, so the question in your textbook over here says we need to determine the new domain and range of each function. So first we're told that the domain of the original function has an x value that is greater than -4, and it has a y value that is less than -1. So I thought, let's plot that out. Okay, so here we have our original square root of x function, right? And we know that x in this direction has to be greater than 0, and we know that y in this direction has to be greater than 0 because we see there's no line on this side of the x or y, right? So I drew up a function of this that has the same limits as in our question number 19 over here. So here, this is our limit of an x value that is greater than or equal to -4 and a y value that is less than -1, right? So looking at this limit, I know it's not exactly the same as in your question, but this is the kind of general idea. So this is an example of a function, although your question is asking for a more general function. Okay, so here we have this function, and I just drew it out over here, that f of x equals negative square root x plus 4 minus 1, so that it would have the same limits as in our question. All right, so let's have some fun with Desmos. So in part D, it tells us that it wants to make all of these transformations over here, right? So what happens if I were to put an x plus 5 in here? Oh, well, if I put x plus 5 inside of my brackets, it got moved over 5 to the left, right? -4 to -5, it got moved over. -4 minus 5 is now -9, right? If I put a negative sign in front of my x, well, suddenly there's been a reflection in our y-axis, right? So now my new limits, I now have an x that is less than +9. It's less than +9, and a y value is still less than -1. So what happens when we have that negative x in front there, right, is it switched both of our limits, right? So it switched both. X is now greater than, it was originally greater than -9, right? X was greater than -9. This is where it was before, right? This is where all of our domain was. And now that I put this negative there, well, now it's less than +9. See? So my domain is now less than +9. So what happens when I add more to this? So let's say I want to stretch this vertically by 2. That didn't really change my limits very much there. However, it actually did change my y value. It didn't change my x value, but it doubled my y value. I went from -1 to -2. Now what happens if I stick a negative number in front of that? Oh, well, I multiplied. It looks like I've multiplied my original y value of -1 by -2. And not only that, it also switched the limit on my y value. So now y has to be greater than, in this case, 2, right? Before y was less than -1, Now y is greater than positive 2. Okay, so now let's add on the positive 1 at the very end over here. I'm also going to get rid of my original square root function there. And here I can now see that my new limit is over here at 9 and 3. So what happened is I have now a new vertical limit of greater than 3. So when I review everything that we did, so in the domain we had a horizontal stretch of -1, so it got multiplied by -1, and then we added 5, right? So -4 times -1 is positive 4. Positive 4 plus 5 is positive 9, right? And then vertically, we multiplied by -2. So -1 times -2 is positive 2. So we had a positive 2 over here. And then finally, we added on 1 at the end. So positive 2 plus 1 is positive 3. And since we had both a reflection in the y-axis, a horizontal reflection, and a vertical reflection in the x-axis, we also switched both of our domain and range numbers. So now we have a domain. We have a domain of x is less than 9, or in this case less than or equal to 9. And we have a range of y is greater than 3. All right. Hopefully that clarified some things. See you all tomorrow.